But the main reason why I wanted to talk to you today is primarily because of something happened this week, and I put it on Twitter, and I Googled, I searched Bitcoin and Black people, and what I was trying to find is like maybe a list of companies headed by Black people who work in big and crypto, something like that. But I just kept getting the same responses. So, Bitcoin Black America by by Isaiah Jackson, Guapcoin, Tavania Evans, um, and Akon, right? It's
Um,
pretty much that was the top of the search results, and I'm like, well, okay, is it that there aren't that many of us in the space, or is it that there's not that many of us talking about it and people think there's not a lot of us in the space?
so I will say this: it's a couple of different ways that this scenario plays out. One, Deidre McEntry. I think you follow her on this is bothering me right now on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me a while ago a list that's 100 Black people across the globe in the blockchain crypto space. If okay, you know when you see me talk about the Thursday Blackness blogs on LinkedIn,
Right.
that's where I got X amount of those names from. And then there's the other people that I've met over time or who I come across because I heard about something they were doing. But it's literally 100 people on that list. But at this point, I clearly understand, and I believe most of us understand, that there are definitely more than 100 people, Black people, across the globe that are in the blockchain crypto space.
Right.
The other part of it is we are talking amongst ourselves at certain levels, in certain communities and certain networks,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't translate out into the search engine filters, right?
Yeah.
So that other part to that is the algos. Like if you DuckDuckGo'd it, if you would have Twittered it as a search, or if you would have used I forgot the other one besides Googly, you would have relatively came up with the same set of people because you were in the algos that were set for the American market.
Right.
Now,
Not
if
Africa, not South America. Just
exactly.
gotcha.
So if you don't specifically know like the name of the company or at least the first name to try to mess with, or at least say, well, let me direct the algos to shoot me in the direction of looking of who's in Nigeria, who's in Ghana, who's in Botswana.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to give you that.
Right. Right. Well, and
So
then we have, because we already know that crypto is big in Africa. I mean, what Kenya, Nigeria have thriving crypto markets.
multiple exchanges already that most of the people over here have no idea about.
Right, exactly. And I think that's where my whole issue started, as crypto is worldwide, but the ways we have to research things are despite being a global internet, are actually pretty centralized.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the algorithm set for the United States. So I guess you could use a VPN and appear somewhere else so that it gives you those results. But by and large, you're not going to get a broad spectrum of content because it's not really meant to do that.
Yes, and then the other thing, and I've been saying this for a while now, bro. And when I first started saying it, nobody was really catching what I was talking about. There were only in just the general bigger space of the crypto thing, there are a handful of personalities that actually cross different markets.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Ivan on Tech, he has people who follow him in Asia. He has people who follow him in Australia, who follow him in Europe, who follow him in the States. Um, who is it? Box Mining. Box Mining is based out of China. He has people who follow him in Europe, parts of Africa, over here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
The irony of this is when you go for who the American content creators are, or who the American, like, quote, leaders of industry or thought leaders are in this thing, you start then getting into a funnier pool or funnier segmentation where the complexion starts to lighten a great deal. The gender starts to focus more on one side. And then the irony when you get down to that is, even though you have a handful of people who come this way, it's even smaller going the other way outside of the states. And what I scratch my head about at times is there's still this thing of, well, you know, what are the Americans saying about X, Y, and Z in blockchain? If you look at some of how the articles are framed, they'll give you this whole DC American reference thing. Well, you know, the SEC is looking to do blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but like, I mean, there's other jurisdictions.
Right.
Right.
The United States.
Right. And so it's still weird to see how it plays out when you start asking people about, well, who do you listen to? And I can honestly say this, when you go to non-black areas, when you go to black or brown people areas and you ask people like, well, who do you listen to about crypto? Americans are generally not on the list. And part of it is you don't have people who are actually looking to do the work to get into those areas, those markets, and make like a connection and impact with people. So if you go to Latin America, like if you go to like Chile, Argentina, depending on how long you kind of been in, and like if you actually had to go through looking at, you know, who's the person who's talking about DeFi and stuff right now, that's mainly the American folks talking about DeFi right now. If you look at who was heavy talking about mining in like what, like 14 to like 17, it was mainly American content creators and like X amount of the one or two Asian content creators who were like showing you stuff. But there was a whole nother community going on in Argentina, in Venezuela. There was a whole nother movement going on in Nigeria, in South Africa, Australia, even like Vietnam and Laos. But the cultural dynamics, like honestly, I think we suck at it. Honestly, I think we do. And somebody might argue me different on this, but I think that us in the Western American context, as far as content creators and thought leaders, or whatever other label you want to put yourself under, we take shit for granted because like it quotes started here and we went through the first decade where like X amount of the attention was like, well, what's going on in the US? What's going on in California, out in like Silicon Valley? Oh, they're not paying attention to it, but it's still developing and growing. Well, what's going on the East Coast? Look what's going on in Denver and how their community or their communities grew around ETH, right? Or Ethereum. Even with like Canada, can you name like 3 or 4 Canadian content creators? Because there's a ton of out of Montreal, out of Vancouver, out of Toronto. Most of the people I know are in Toronto. But if I talk to most of the folks down here in the States, they have no idea. And then I didn't even try to get to like, all right, let's try to say, can you name me at least 10 Black content creators? I'm still on the whole thing right now. Like, why aren't there more female content creators, like Black female content creators?
Well, that, you know, but that's I mean, because there are a lot of females in crypto. I mean, yes. The most prominent members of especially content creators are women. Mm-hmm. You know, because like you have Crypto NDO, you have Naomi Brockwell, you have what's her name, Justina.
Yeah, she's out of what you call it. I know you're talking about.
She's out of Canada. So you have a lot of people who are, you have a lot of women who are in the space who don't, present themselves.
Right.
And a part of me thinks that has to do with the pushback that, well, not pushback, but just, hell, let's just say it outright, sexism that they're
Yes.
likely to face in the space. I mean, I look at some of the comments that people get, and most of them have to do with their appearance.
Yes.
And it's just like, well, that's not the point. That's not why we're here. But that's what they face. And quite frankly, that's what we face. I mean, being black people, black men in this space, people may look at you as you don't know enough to talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not educated enough, that you're ignorant, right? And you end up hitting that hurdle because we've been in this space for a few years now. You've been in since 2012, so more than half of the people putting this stuff out on YouTube, but you have to fight this uphill battle for recognition because people have preconceived notions.
What's some real funniness? I've been attending a good number of webinars during this whole COVID thing, bro. And you still got the same bullshit going on as far as who do you see? Like, they'll find somebody all the way around the rest of the world and be like, oh, this person is blah, 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 company person of da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
There is literally a public list on Google Drives that has 100 qualified people who are engineers, computer scientists, serial entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And you telling me you can't find somebody to talk about blockchain, cryptography, cybersecurity? It's mind-blowing to me, bro.
I still remember
mind-blowing.
In 2017, Black Enterprise put out their list of crypto influencers. And there was 4 people. I'm like, you guys don't know anybody else? And,
okay.
It wasn't maybe 5 people. But it was like, there's an entire world full of Black people and technology. I'm sure if you dug a little deeper, you'd find more than just these few people, and I guess that's it. But I guess it goes back to our original point about how you do your search, right? Because if you're using standard Google American search isn't geared to show you list of Black people first.
Okay,
not meant.
But how about this though? If you're on Twitter, if you even go, you know what, let me go ask the other person in such and such, and with this in this group. Mm-hmm. If you look in the room and everybody in the room look like you, and hey, you know what? I'm gonna jump back one, because this is something that annoyed me in late 2018 that I saw popping up. This whole thing of diversity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And why do I get into diversity and inclusion? Because diversity and inclusion is an American corporate concept that we market out to other cultures and groups and societies and countries. So I'm a Fortune 500 company person, corporate in the States, and I'm talking about, oh, we need to have, more diversity going on in the corporate office. But what does that mean if I go to India, right? What does diversity look like there? What does inclusion look like when I go to Germany, right? What does it look like on the ground if I'm in like Liechtenstein or Kurdistan, or if I'm in Nicaragua? Yeah. Is it a language thing? Is it a culture thing? Is it like how it shifts depending on where you are. And we pushed it here in the States in a way where it's like, well, you know, it's not really diverse if it's only black people. So we broadened it out to now include like people of color and all that funness, whatever.
Mm.
Get at me if you want to. But in my mind, it's like a sideways 51% attack.
Mm. Okay.
Because here you have it that in the American context, black people have been used as the promotion tools for a lot of different things, and like the trial and error guinea pigs for a lot of different things, and as well as just like X amount of bigger societal developments come off of the black community, black creativity, black influence.
Oh, they're searching for vaccines.
Bruh.
Google, for
So,
those watching, Google Tuskegee experiment.
Yo, there's the dude who made the game for Atari to come up with interchangeable cartridges.
Yeah.
I forgot his name at the moment. That's a black dude who's working in his garage.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My point though on this whole thing of we're here. We've always been here, right? Some of the most, like, if you talk to people who are hardcore like business accounting folks, some of the most like highly, you know, educated, best world known accountants and like high level, like who's a what's the word I'm looking for? Not marketing, like CMO level stuff. Nigerians, man, hands down. Go anywhere in Africa, they'll tell you all day. Nigerians know how to count the numbers.
Yeah.
Nigeria, I think, puts out more like accountant level folks than any one of the other countries on the continent. But we still get this sideways thing of, well, we know y'all do stuff, but what about the other people of color?
Right. Yeah.
Hold on. But they don't have the same situation we got.
Right.
The laws don't work the same way. The regulations don't work the same way. So it's not me saying, oh, screw them. But what I've noticed is there's like this growing thing of, yeah, we know you black, but we got to remember everybody else who's of color too.
Right.
And so
we know you're black people over there.
No, and if you a black male, bro, just go over in the corner and like, you know, grab your cup of water. You're gonna be there for a while.
You're gonna be there for a while.
Bruh.
But you know what? That makes a good point because, okay, so when we're talking about representation, are we messing up by waiting for them to allow us to be shown? Or should we just say, hey, I'm here, I'm knocking down the door, let's do this?
Yo, I be listening to what's his name? God, rapper, I can't remember his name right now. I'm so annoyed. Okay, so as somebody who is in this content creation part of the space and looking to put out, you know, my thoughts on things and observations, qualitative observations is like my new hashtag and stuff, right? And then I was watching this Joe Budden monologue he did on his podcast recently on Charlemagne.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about ownership. And he was saying, you know, we're not in the same fight because how I'm going about this whole thing and how you going about it is two different things.
Right.
And when, you know, somebody who doesn't look like you feels that they're not getting enough split from the market share, they can just turn off your channel. They can just change your whole season lineup. They can change your time slot. Mm-hmm. They can add in a new host when they want to.
Right.
And he said, that doesn't happen here. I fund all of this. I own all of this. And he was also bringing up Dame Dash and how Dame Dash was trying to make that point to Charlamagne one time when they was on the Breakfast Club. Mm. And I look at this thing now and like, I've eased up on doing the podcast because I've been trying to figure out, well, how do you change the format of what the general format of podcast stuff right now is? You do the podcast, you get it to a certain thing, like number count as far as downloads or listens or whatever for metrics. And then the sponsorship comes in, right? Either you approach somebody and be like, listen, I got like, 1,000 downloads a month and this is what my reach is. Here's my audience, da, 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 da. Your product could kind of line up with what I do. Yeah. And then you get that sponsorship thing going. And I've really been questioning the whole thing now on like, well, do I really care for the sponsorship? Because my first thought, and I'm gonna get to where I'm going with this, is if I did sponsorship for stuff, I wanted it to be stuff that I actually use. And even if I didn't use it myself directly, at least let it be something that I would actually tell somebody about. Like I would tell my mother about this, or my brother or my sister.
Right.
If I couldn't do that, I didn't want to mess with it.
Right.
And there's been like one or two things that have come up where I was just like, that's not really my cup of tea. I can't take that on.
Mm-hmm.
This thing of, you have the people who will argue, let's, get a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be like, yeah, but then they put you at the kiddie table.
Right.
Right. And there's some people who are cool with that. And then you have the people who will go, well, bump it. I'm just going to build my own table.
Right.
Tyler Perry. Right. And do my own thing. And we'll just work with it from here. Because of how, I would say, integrated the world is today for products, for services, I think that we, because of being innovators, because of being influencers, because being more than just consumers, we are definitely more than consumers. We know we got the buying power, but we also got the intellectual capital. We also got the influence. We also got the innovation.
Right.
And I'm not saying everyone has a super grand idea, but like, if we start at some point and we work out the thing of being able to have that person, scale and at least make a sustainable model. Okay, pass it on to the next person and figure out how to do it over there.
Mm-hmm.
I think honestly what messes us up is that we get marketed the whole thing of, oh, in order for you to be successful, you got to ball out. In order for you to be successful, you have to have a revenue that's in the multi-millions. In order for you to be successful and not be mediocre, you got to be on some Jay-Z, Beyonce level.
Right.
And so we get marketed these concepts in the tangibles of what rich and wealth look like. And so we chase the horse as opposed to being like, well, how do I come up with a business that may not be the flashy entertainment level stuff or may not be the sports life, but it's sustainable, it pays my bills, it takes care of my family, I can pass on something to my future generations, I can have an impact that goes beyond my generation. We don't get that part of the marketing, bro. That's like, the last like 2 months, I've been going through a lot of looking at how we get stuff marketed towards us as Black people. And it's not just like us here in the US. It's the same shit you get over in Africa or in Europe or in Latin America, or if you Black in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
We get that first tier thing of, oh, you got to be rich and it got to look like this, as opposed to, how are you working in the communitive sense to, you taking care of your immediate nuclear family and then X amount of the benefit works out when you collaborate with another family and y'all are doing something that has a bigger impact within the community. Mm-hmm. We don't get that level, which is like level 2, 3, or how do you push this forward? We get the one generation knowledge shit. And I'm annoyed with it. I'm tired of it. So I'm about building your own table, but I do realize that for some people, they're not about building their own table. Right. And then some people want to do it where it's like, yo, we got to come up in here and make all types of noise and, you know, be flashy and let everybody know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I'm not that person. Yeah. I don't need to, you know, be flashy and show you and tell you and, oh, look at me. Like, if that's what you're doing, go have fun. Go do that. You want to get the public accolades? No problem. Enjoy. It's all you. Right. I'm going to just be over here building this stuff, pushing some things out to help some people move along to a better stage in life. And I know for me, for what I'm working to put together now, the idea is to make it have more of an impact than just one generation being mine.